Robertson came back to visit Rolette in Overley. He came to Overley and he said God's house should be clean and it should be beautiful. The members of Willow Creek Lutheran Church have remembered his words well, because if he was here today, he would say, it is beautiful. I want to offer my congratulations to the committee that's putting on this wonderful celebration. What I expected it of you. Your grandfathers and your fathers taught you how. I remember in 1935 when we celebrated the 50th anniversary. Well, now at that time we did not have closed circuit TV. And no, we did not have porta potties either. But the congregation just didn't open those windows on the east side. They took them out. And they stored them in the church barn. That ring a bell? Remember the church barn? Maybe I'll talk more about that a little later. They took and borrowed some lumber from the Overley Cooperative Elevator Lumber Yard, Forrest Roethlisberger manager, and built a platform out there just high enough so that the chairs that they borrowed from the Sons of Norway, they could see in. Not only could they see God's word being preached, but they could hear. And I'd like to remind you that what I can remember, the uniform of the day for our dads and grandfathers was. Now this was in 35, right in the middle of the Depression. Things were tough. And I'm sure many of you have read that booklet and those inspiring stories we heard about this. If you haven't, read it, because it is very inspiring. But any account, I want to mention that the uniform of the day for the dads was a well-worn suit coat and a brand new pair of overalls that they bought at either Montgomery Ward or Sears and Roebuck. Because you see, they couldn't afford to buy a new suit even for such a special occasion as this. I want to pay tribute to the three sons that have answered God's call and became pastors in the Lutheran Church. Reverend Ahmet, Reverend Sledo, and Reverend Severson. I also want to take and thank the Willow Creek Lutheran Church for the roll of honor that we have on the wall for our veterans. Now, I'm a joiner, so I have my name enrolled in the World War II Memorial in Washington, D.C. I have it also in the Marine Museum in Quantico, Virginia, as well as the World War II Museum in New Orleans. But, ladies and gentlemen, that was the first, and that's the one I'm most proud to join with the other veterans from the Willow Creek Lutheran Church, my cousins, my classmates, the men that I knew, the ladies that I knew here in Overley. Now, I don't know, I'm a little hesitant to tell this story, but I think maybe I will take time. I said that I was going to tell you a little bit more about the church barn. That must have been at least 80 feet long. I don't know if there was 8 or 10 stalls in there. If Manville is still around, ask him, he would know. But on the east end, there was a rather elaborate, very elaborate outhouse. There was a 3-holer for the ladies. I remember that I and my cousin Bob, now this is not my cousin Bob that you all knew and loved so well, his family and Bob, but it was another cousin Bob. His name was Robert Marcus, and he was also called Bob. Well, any account, I think it was on the Sunday that they spoke, that they only had the Norwegian services here, so we were out playing behind the church barn. and I think it was some of the Johnson cousins that came in, giggling girls, and they went into the outhouse. We thought it would be a pretty good trick. So there was a hasp on the lock, and we put a twig in there. Well, of course, after they made enough noise, we decided we ought to let them out. And we ran around from behind the barn to take us out. And there we met face to face Mrs. Hilda Carlson. You know Hilda well enough that that wasn't She marched us right in here to the sacristy, and Reverend Agnes was just completing this. We were talking, I think, to Secret League. They made us sit on those chairs, and they were talking in Norwegian, and I don't have any idea. We worried they were talking about us. But anyhow, finally Secret Lee left, and Reverend Agnes took out his pipe. If you don't remember, he had a very elaborate curved pipe. It had a silver cap on it, and he put the tobacco in and packed it. You know how they did in those days, they had these farmers' matches and they lit them on the Finally he turned to us and he said, "That was a bad thing you boys did." He says, "It's pretty hot in there and it doesn't smell very nice." And he says, "There's flies." And he said, "That might have been Mrs. Agnes that you locked in there." Well, after he said that, he got the giggles and he had to turn his back. And when he had recomposed himself, he said, "You boys go home and tell your parents what you did and never do it again." Well, I assure you we didn't have to tell our parents, because by that time they were even talking about it over at St. Genevieve's Catholic Church. I want to thank my family that made it possible for me to be here today. And I want to also tell you that my sister Genevieve's daughters from the West Coast came. So Bishop, you talked about the inheritance that we members have received here in faith and love of God, and it didn't stay just in this community, it went clear to the West Coast. I thank you very much, and God bless you.